Today, we're diving into the story of a trader who became an absolute legend, not by being some kind of genius who could predict the markets, but by mastering the art of failure. His name is Peter Brandt, and believe me, his journey completely redefines what it actually takes to win. But let's kick things off with a number that just seems impossible. 337%. That's the average annual return of one of the unknown traders from Jack Schwager's book, Unknown Market Wizards. It's a figure that just makes you stop and think, what did these people know that the rest of us don't? So yeah, how is that possible? What's the secret sauce that separates these elite, kind of hidden traders from the, 95+% of people who try this stuff and just go broke? Is it some secret formula? Are they just born with it? Well, we're going to uncover that secret by digging into the story of Peter Brandt. This guy pulled off a remarkable 58% average annual return over a 27-year career. And here's the spoiler, his secret has absolutely nothing to do with being right all the time. Okay, let's start with part 1, a trader's cycle of failure. Because Brandt's journey, like so many of the greats, doesn't start with a string of wins. Oh no, it starts with crushing, repeated failure. So Brandt wasn't born with a silver spoon, not by a long shot. In his own words, he grew up dirt poor. He was hustling from the time he was 10 years old, delivering papers, collecting bottles. He learned right from the get-go that if he wanted something, he had to make it happen himself. So get this, after building a pretty sweet career in advertising, he was even there for the creation of Ronald McDonald, he takes a trip to the Chicago Board of Trade. He sees the raw energy, the chaos, the Porsches in the parking lot, and he was hooked. He quit his stable job to go chase that dream. And this is where the story gets real. He didn't just walk in and start winning. He failed. And I mean, he failed spectacularly. I blew out 3 or 4 accounts over the next 3 years, he admits. He lost every penny of his trading capital multiple times. So much for being a natural. And what's so relatable about this is that he was just like anyone else starting out. You can see he was desperately hunting for a system, any system, that worked. He tried fundamental analysis, seasonal patterns, you name it, and every single one of them led to a blown-up account. So what finally broke that cycle of failure? Well, that brings us to our second section, the life-changing book. The first big turning point wasn't some flashy new strategy. It was actually a really simple gesture. A colleague just handed him a copy of this old book from 1948 on classical chart analysis. For Brandt, reading that book was like someone finally turned on the lights. Now, this wasn't some kind of magic formula. What it gave him, for the very first time, was a framework, a logical, structured way to look at price charts. It gave him an idea of, okay, here's where I might get into a market, here's where it might go, and most importantly, here's where I need to protect myself. But, the charts, that was only half the story. And that leads us to the most important part of this whole journey. Part 3, the real secret, risk. Brandt's biggest mentor, a trader named Dan Markey, gave him the one lesson that would define his entire career. The focus totally shifted from, how do I make money, to an obsession with, how do I not lose money? As Dan told him, you had to protect your pile of chips, period. And here's how Brandt turned that philosophy into an ironclad process. He came up with 2 rules that were completely non-negotiable. First, never, ever risk more than half of 1% of his capital on a single trade. And second, if a trade is showing a loss by Friday's close, he's out. No questions, no second guessing, no exceptions. So, how does this all come together? Let's break down the powerful wisdom that really defines his success. That's part 4, Lessons from a Legend. This right here perfectly contrasts the myths about trading with Brandt's hard-won reality. Most people think their job is to be right. Brandt says, nope, my job is to take losses. People think their edge is in forecasting. He says his is in risk management. They think success is being a genius. He knows it's all about having a process. This quote is really the core of everything. The charts are just a tool. They help him find a good spot where he can place a bet with a really well-defined, low-risk exit point. The real skill, the actual edge, comes from managing that bet relentlessly. And this is the huge mental shift, right? For Brandt, taking a small, quick loss isn't a failure. It's a win. It's a victory for his process. It means he did his job, he protected his capital, and that lets him stand the game long enough for those big home runs to come along. But here's the twist in the story.
Once you actually master your process and you start winning, a brand new enemy shows up, and it's you. It's complacency.
Brant learned this one the hard way. As he says, my biggest losses have always followed my biggest profits. After you have a huge winning streak, it's just so easy to feel invincible, to get a little sloppy, and to forget the very discipline that got you there in the first place.
And this chart says it all. In 1987, Brant had his best year ever, an insane 600% return. So what happened the very next year? He got complacent. He started chasing markets, and he posted his first losing year as a full-time trader. Talk about a humbling lesson.
All of these lessons, they all build to a single critical takeaway, a powerful question you need to ask yourself. And that brings us to our final part. What is your pitch? Brant is absolutely adamant about this. You can learn principles from other people, for sure, but you can't just copy-paste their system. And why not? Because when you inevitably hit a losing streak, and you won't have that deep conviction in the process to stick with it through the pain. You've got to find your own way. And that leaves us with his most powerful piece of advice. It's a question every single one of us should be asking, whether you're a trader or not. What is your pitch? Can you define with extreme clarity what it is you're willing to risk your capital, your time, and your energy on? Because that focus, that process, that is the real secret to winning.